besties, welcome back to my channel, or hi, my name is Stacy if you're new here. So today's video is super exciting because I'm comparing these 3 new cream/liquid blush formulas at Sephora. I'm doing it in a kind of ranking system, so I'll be reviewing them from my least favorite to my most favorite, and also I include swatches of all of them and try all of the shades I own on my cheeks. I do own most of the shades, except for the Nars ones. I'm missing 2 of the shades. I have the rest of all the colors. So if this kind of blush roundup sounds good to you, then just keep on watching. Before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, because it really helps out my channel and it would really mean a lot to me. Let's just get right into the video. Okay, so in third place we have the Nars Afterglow Liquid Blushes. These retail for $32 and they're actually the most expensive blush on this list today, but they're all around this $30 price point. If I were to describe this blush in one phrase, it would be watercolor effect. It definitely has a dewy finish. Actually, all 3 of these have a dewy finish, so that's not really a difference. But this one is definitely the least pigmented out of the 3. The pro of that is that it does make it very hard to overdo this blush. Like, it just blends out super easily on the cheeks. It basically blends itself, and even if you do add too much, it's very easily like blended away. I also wanted to point out that this is very different from their original liquid blush formula. That one is very pigmented and it dries down to a more satin matte finish, although their Orgasm shade does have shimmer in it, but the formula itself dries down more matte. Whereas these new Afterglow ones are definitely dewy, and it does have a bit of a setting quality to it, so that's nice. But it's good that, like, even though these are super dewy, they don't feel too wet on the cheeks in my opinion, as long as you don't add too much product. But yeah, all of these are dewy, so they're not gonna like fully dry down on the cheeks, and if that's something you're looking for, you're not gonna like any of these blushes. You could also lightly set them with a regular powder or a powder blush afterwards, which is what I usually do. Anyways, who I recommend this Nars blush for? I would say, first of all, generally for lighter skin tones, just because this is the least pigmented, and that's already like on my skin tone where I feel like I can add like multiple layers and it's not super blushy on me. So I don't really know how well these would show up on deeper skin tones. Honestly, the lighter shades I feel like are just not going to show up. And then there was a deeper shade that I didn't actually pick up, so maybe that shade would work for deeper skin tones, but just given how unpigmented in general these blushes are, I recommend for lighter skin tones. And related to that, I do think that these are better for beginners in makeup or people who are just starting out with blush, because like I said, they're pretty unpigmented. They do have some buildable quality to them, but it's not the most buildable. As I said before, it makes it really hard to overdo this blush. Like, if you found the Rare Beauty blush too hard to work with because it's just too pigmented for you and you don't know how to use it, this is like the antidote to that. And because it is less pigmented, it basically blends itself out once you put on the cheeks. In a similar vein, I think this would be really nice for anybody who likes a more no makeup look, or just wears very minimal makeup in general. It's very like clean girl aesthetic vibes, so if you're into that, I think you'll like this. I feel like the same people who would like the Glossier vibe would also like this. For me personally, it's not my favorite. It's a little bit too unpigmented, as I said before. That's because I generally like a lot of blush. I like a very blushy look, and especially for more liquid or cream blushes, I find that if a blush isn't pigmented enough, I end up building up more layers of it, which then causes more problems because it's easier for it to feel heavy or tacky on the skin. That's why when it comes to cream or liquid blushes, I usually look for a more pigmented formula. I don't want to build up the formula too much because then it gets like too glowy for my tastes. Anyways, overall this is still a nice blush, and for me, since I do like a more soft glam look, it's a little bit too natural for me. Okay, next up in second place, our runner up, we have the new Pat McGrath Divine Blush Glow Color Balms. So these retail for $29 and it's actually the cheapest blush out of the 3, surprisingly, but they're all around this $30 mark. So if I were to describe this blush in one phrase, I would say it gives a jelly effect to the cheeks. I hope you can see this in the swatches, but it does have like this translucent jelly glow to it. And I don't know how it's different than the watercolor effect from the Nars, but it just feels different, you know what I mean? I feel like this one just looks more jelly-like and juicy, whereas the Nars one looks a little bit more wet and translucent. Honestly, this one is very pretty. And compared to the Nars, it is slightly more pigmented. It's more easily buildable, I would say, but the pigment is still on the lighter side, so I do have to build up more layers, and sometimes it gets a little bit glowier than I prefer. But since it is more pigmented and buildable than the Nars, it ranks higher. This one definitely gives me very model off duty vibes. It is very dewy though, probably just as dewy as the Nars ones. I will say for this one, I do end up usually setting it a little bit because it is very glowy. I'm actually wearing the shade Forbidden Fleur right now on my cheeks, and I set it. So as you can see, it has more of like a satin glowy finish now once I set it, but without setting it, my cheeks would look super dewy. I also think, again, because this one is very glowy, I wouldn't try to put it over like a fully set face. I have put it over powder blush before and it kind of started to patch up a little bit. I would still recommend just putting this over your regular cream products and then setting after if you think it's too glowy, because I think it looks great like this, how I have it right now. But yeah, again, because it's not quite pigmented enough for my tastes, because once I build it up to the desired color I want, it's too glowy. That's why this one is ranking kind of second. And also, I really don't like this packaging because it's just really lightweight. It does look really pretty though with the pink. Like, you guys know I love pink. This doesn't feel $29 worth, you know, and this is actually the lightest weight packaging out of the three. Like, I would say that's a slight disappointment for Pat McGrath, because with her brand name, you would expect a more luxe experience. I feel like you do care about the overall experience and packaging when you're paying like $30 for a blush. So overall, this blush is super pretty. It's just not really my favorite. And the other thing I would say is that most of the shades in this line lean quite warm. There are a couple of cool tone shades, but they run warmer in my opinion. But yeah, I think more skin tones would be able to wear this Pat McGrath one, just because there is more pigment and it's more buildable than the Nars. Okay, and last but not least, my favorite blush out of the new cream blush formulas would have to be this new Makeup by Mario Soft Pop Plumping Blush Veil. This retails for $30, so this is in the middle between the other two. If I were to describe this blush in one phrase, it would be like a soft glow effect to the cheeks. So this is definitely the most pigmented out of the three. It's also the most opaque, like it has the most coverage. The other two are definitely like this watercolor jelly vibe, so they look translucent on the skin. Like, you can literally see your skin through it. Whereas this one is definitely more opaque. Compared to Mario's previous soft pop blush sticks, I would say that the blush sticks are more of the translucent watercolor vibe, kind of more similar to the Pat McGrath one, but it's a little bit less balmy than the Pat McGrath, like not quite as dewy. This new Plumping Blush Veil just feels a little bit more glam to me, since it has more pigment and coverage, although you can still get a more natural look out of this by just using less product. So I like that this has that versatility. The other thing I like about this is I actually like the shades the best. I know some people complain about Makeup by Mario's shades because they're too like basic, but I don't know, I actually really like the undertones that he came out with. Like, this perfect pink shade is the perfect natural cool pink, because a lot of brands come out with like super bright neon cool pinks because the whole Barbie like Dior pink blush thing has been in for a while, but this is the most like natural soft cool pink I've found in the Western market. So I'm like very impressed with his shades, especially his cool tones. I feel like they're very flattering. And yeah, I mean, like, they're basic shades, but I feel like he did the undertones pretty well in my opinion. Like, he has warm and cool tones, but even the warm tones in his line look pretty flattering on me, which is why I feel like they're more nuanced. I personally really liked the shades he came out with. Actually, I think I would like the Nars shade range the best if the formula was more pigmented, because Nars has that lavender color in the shade Wanderlust. But yeah, like, if Mario came out with a lavender blush in this formula, I would literally ascend. So again, as I was saying before, since this is the most pigmented, I like the look of this on the cheeks the best, like without any powder or anything. Whereas the other ones, I feel like I need to powder them or it just looks too glowy, especially once I build it up to my desired pigment. But with this one, because it is more pigmented, I don't have to add too much. So with the amount that I add, it's like the perfect amount of like soft glow to my cheeks. So that's another thing to keep in mind, especially if you have a more normal to oily skin type like I do. I'm slightly oily in the T-zone and then pretty much normal everywhere else. While I do have an oilier skin type, I can still get away with these kinds of dewy, glowy blushes as long as I set them in the right places. But yeah, this one needs less setting basically than the other two. And then as for the wear time, some people have opposing opinions on this, but for me personally, this Makeup by Mario one lasts the longest. And I feel like it's because it's the most pigmented. Like, if I added the same amount of this blush versus the other two, this one would last longer just because there's more pigment there. So even if it fades, like, it would still be on my cheeks at the end of the day. But honestly, I can get a full day's wear out of all three. I would say the Nars lasts the shortest because, again, least pigmented. Like, the Nars maybe lasts around 6 hours, whereas the Makeup by Mario and the Pat McGrath I can get like 8 hours. I haven't really tested more than 8 hours because I don't usually wear my makeup longer than that by that much. But yeah, that is with using some setting powder on my oiliest areas and with setting spray, because that's how I always do my makeup. So if you left these like fully unset, I don't really know how long that would last. But also, I do want to point out that I don't usually have the problem of blush fading on me, maybe just because of my setting process. Usually my blush doesn't like disappear by the end of the day. It might fade a little bit, but it's usually still there by the time I remove my makeup. And it might just be because I add a lot of blush because I love a blushy look. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that I don't normally struggle with blush fading, so if that's you, maybe I'm not the best comparison for that, but for me personally, this Makeup by Mario one had the most longevity. So that's about it for this new blush roundup. If you guys found this helpful in terms of deciding which blush to get, or if you have them, let me know what you think of the blushes. I really like all three, but the one I love the most is definitely the Makeup by Mario, and this is the one I just like always reach for. If he comes out with more like interesting shades, I would love that. And yeah, also there have been a few new blush releases on the market. I will be doing some kind of video for that, either shorts or a full video about the new Patrick Ta blushes and the Givenchy blushes and the Tower 28 blush, because I did did get all of them. Since those aren't new formulas, I didn't want to compare them in this video. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Which blush out of these three is your favorite if you've tried them? Also keep in mind this is all based off of personal preferences and also experiences, like my skin type might be different than yours. Yeah, just because something worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you and vice versa. But yeah, let us know down in the comments so that we can kind of compile our knowledge together. I'm looking forward to posting more here on YouTube. You guys can check me out on TikTok and Instagram, which I post on more frequently, so I'll link those down below. Everything I mentioned today will be linked down in the description as well. And before we go, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and comment and subscribe down below if you want to see more content like this, because it really helps out my channel and it would really mean a lot to me. And I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!